The rise of fintech, digital payments, crypto, and blockchain begs one massive unanswered question. What the fuck happens when physical money is actually banned? You know, other than being less likely to get mugged outside of Walmart.
Surprise,
Physical cash has a lot of great benefits like tax evasion, money laundering, and snorting cocaine through. So with all that in mind, why is the Western world like the US and the UK not banned it yet? Let's not kid ourselves into thinking it's because digital infrastructure doesn't have broad enough coverage yet, because anyone with a phone or access to a local library can set up a bank account and order a card to their house, or add the card to Google or Apple Pay. In the USA, there are at least 11.7 million undocumented immigrants in the workforce. That's just over 7% of the total US working population. And since it's currently illegal for a bank to let illegal immigrants open a bank account with them, you can assume a very large amount of that 11.7 million is getting paid not just on the DL from the scary IRS, but also away from the electronic payment system. Add in all of the actual US citizens who get paid under the table for jobs like construction, manual labor, and hospitality, and you definitely have a number well above 11 million. The first thing that happens when money is actually banned is not that those jobs vanish, but those people do. Well, I mean, the people vanish from where the job is, like being in the kitchen, to being on the sidewalk outside the restaurant. That's a pretty extreme change because at present there's only 770,000 homeless people in the US, and that number's going to several X when all of those people lose their job, especially considering they might have family members who they're supporting as well. These jobs are lost because most companies won't be willing to risk the digital trail of paying those illegal workers digitally via a non-regulated money transfer website. Now we have millions of more homeless people, food banks are overwhelmed, and petty crime is going to skyrocket. On the upside though, at least there won't be a massive increase in drug usage because there's no way people can pay their dealers. For business like this to continue, other methods of payment would have to be arranged. Over time, I would expect a lot of those illegal workers would actually end up leaving the US for countries still using cash, and at the same time, the current level of illegal immigration into the US, which is about 800k per year, would reduce significantly given the prospects of them finding work would now be near zero. Another positive that might come out of this is the current 7.1 million Americans who are unemployed would almost instantly have a job paying at least minimum wage, and that would make the IRS feel whole from a tax perspective despite the lower business profits, since there's now 7 million more tax-paying worker bees in the country. But going back to why the US hasn't banned money yet. Perhaps it's because the government realised that those illegal workers perform a vital function within the economy. That function being keeping small and medium-sized businesses employee costs low and profit margins high enough to survive and pay taxes. After all, some US states like California and New York have some pretty steep minimum wages, where policymakers make frequent visits, and they definitely don't want their favourite pizza joint going out of business because Miguel the chef can't afford a visa. But it actually runs a lot deeper than that. Those very same policymakers likely are invested in, or have friends who are invested in businesses that either directly or indirectly benefit from illegal workers. For example, those policymakers or their friends may have interests in the construction industry, which due to its decentralized nature due to contract work, is hard to audit where any illegal workers may have been used, and therefore very likely to have illegal workers in their mix. Construction is also a very common target of consolidation. That means big companies or financial institutions like to buy them up in bunches and improve their profit margins. This is easy to do because medium-sized construction companies are usually run by legacy families, who whilst knowing how to run their construction business on a practical basis, likely haven't put points in their financial analysis skill tree to optimize the company's financial profile. These consolidated construction companies then become part of the larger group, which the policymaker, or again their buddies, are invested in. So they're quite incentivized for the underlying construction company to keep using illegal workers. But there are also indirect benefits of allowing under-the-table work as well. Let's say you own a fully legally operated retail franchise with a branch on a high street in the middle of town, but the government has banned physical cash and effectively eliminated working under the table, which has put a lot of financial pressure on local businesses. With many of those businesses closing down, now your once thriving high street full of restaurants, quirky shops and major retail stores is now a ghost town of boarded up windows and awkward silence. So locals are much less likely to go and spend money in your store. This doesn't just happen locally though, it happens to many of your stores nationally, and now your business isn't making as much money. Another thing that would happen when the cash is abolished is all banks, fintechs, payment processors, and all of their investors would be creaming their pants, at least initially. Physical cash doesn't account for as much of the world's money as you might think. In fact, in the US by transaction volume it's only 6%, and by total value it's only 4%. But from the finance industry's perspective, that's an extra 6% in transaction fees and an extra 4% in customer deposits, both of which translate to more revenue from the bank and more profit. The only downside is, the shadow economy isn't going to vanish just because there's no cash. People still want to illegally gamble, buy drugs, and buy what my dad would like to call ladies of the night, or as I call them, IRL OnlyFans avatars. This means there will be increased pressure on banks, fintechs, and cryptocurrency exchanges to enhance their due diligence processes to prevent, detect, and report illegal financial activity, which, given banks exist on several decade-old architecture written in lots of extinct coding languages, takes a long time to do, and more importantly, costs a lot more money. What would you miss the most if cash was banned? Comment below.